And so, where has it gone? Where has that money gone, Mr. Speaker? My colleague from Caroni East spoke and told us of some of the projects that had gone into the pockets of the PNM, Mr. Speaker. That's where the money is going, which is what he told us. And so that performance has been so pitiful, Mr. Speaker. They cannot perform, so what do? Bombard us with propaganda. And here is my famous propaganda vote. I've done it again this year, Mr. Speaker. And contrary to the Minister of Information, who sought to preempt me when he said that propaganda vote, we've dropped it and we've done certain things, and it is head 62. Honourable Minister is not here. It is not head 62. Let's start from there. There are 57 heads of expenditure in the budget estimates. Honourable Prime Minister, I'm sure, knows the Minister of Finance. So just for the benefit of the Minister of Information, there are 1 to 57 heads of expenditure. And the item, the sub-item, which comes up for publicity is item 62. So he was right in that sense, but it's not a head, because there are 57 heads. And so when we look at this, Mr. Speaker, every year my constituency staff, and I want to thank my constituency staff and thank the Parliament for providing us with constituency staff, so to Lisa, Usha, Nick, Arlene, and Suzanne. I would thank the UNC, because it was the UNC government who started constituency offices in this country. And so, Mr. Speaker, I thank my staff who spent long hours helping me to compile and to compute out of each head the votes on the 4 items, Mr. Speaker. These are entertainment, hosting, overseas travel, and publicity. Now, in the past, we had done this only for the ministries and the departments from heads 1 to 57. We had not done it for the statutory boards and authorities. And, Mr. Speaker, we cannot do it for the special purpose companies because that information is nowhere in the budget estimates. So today what we've done is to compute the numbers for heads 1 to 57 and for the state boards, the statutory authorities and boards. When I say special purpose companies, I'm talking about Rudicott, Mr. Speaker. I'm talking about Rudicott, PSEL, all these 16 special purpose companies. I think a new one is being formed as we speak. Number 17 in legal affairs, I think a new one is being formed. So for these companies, no estimates, nothing, we cannot tell. But listen what is happening here, Mr. Speaker. When we put all these together, the total this government would have spent since they came into office in 2002 to the end of fiscal 2010 is just under $5 billion. Up to 2009 is just under $5 billion, Mr. Speaker. So before, when we did it, only ministries was $1.3 billion plus another $200 million. Up from 2002 to 2009, government would have spent on this propaganda vote just under $5 billion. And at the end of 2010, it will be over $5 billion, Mr. Speaker. And I'm saying, do you know how much more would have gone into these special purpose companies? You remember when the Honourable Member Carney's made a statement in the Parliament? They took a whole page ad Rudicott took. And they have these newspaper things running, they have TV ads and so on, all that taking place, but we have no idea of how much is being spent. I come back to what we have the information for. Mr. Speaker, just for us to understand the $5 billion, what is the difference between million and billion, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, 1 million seconds is about how many days? It's about 12 days. Huh? 1 million. 1 million seconds is about 12 days. So if we are talking about $5 billion, we are talking about seconds that make up 31 years. 5 billion, that's what you've spent to get an understanding of the number, because these billions and millions are flying all over. Just consider it in terms of these seconds. So for 5 billion of propaganda vote, we are talking about, Mr. Speaker, 151 years, I'm sorry. 1 billion is 31 years, and the 5 billion is 151 years in seconds, Mr. Speaker. So, where are we going? Mr. Speaker, last year alone, this government spent 46 billion. That was the budget. This works down to 127 million every day, 5 million every hour. You know, and while this budget speech was going on, the 3 hours, 15 million was being spent in that 3 hours. 5 million, Mr. Speaker, per hour. And so, the 5 billion of the vote, Mr. Speaker, 1.519 billion is for ministries and departments, head 1 to 57, and 3.5 billion are for the statutory boards and authorities. Didn't see that before. And we come up to 5 billion. Can you it is, well, I'm going to that now. Mr. Speaker, what we could have done, think of how many roads we could have rehabilitated, how many schools, hospitals, community centers, beds, school supplies that we could have used this $5 billion for. Instead, government now wants to tax us, and I'll come back to that, to pay for the excesses. So let's break the numbers down. And I come first to frequent flyers. Who are the frequent flyers, Mr. Speaker, as shown by the estimates? Coming in at number 1, Mr. Speaker.
Who is that?
And it's not the Prime Minister. It is not. Last time it was, but it's not. Would you believe it is the Ministry of National Security? National Security. And I have all the worksheets. I'm willing to share them, where we have compiled and computed this. And in future, it'll be good if we get these estimates in soft copy. So it'll be very easy for us on the computer to click and compute. So may I suggest that we get soft copies of the documents, Mr. Speaker, so that the analysis, that we can give a better analysis. I'm sure the other side wouldn't want that. But certainly we'll be able to search the documents. And so, coming in at number 1, the Ministry of National Security has spent, from 2002, they've spent $30.7 million in overseas travel. The estimates for 2010 is $5.3 million, Mr. Speaker, for overseas travel for national security. And you know, Mr. Speaker, in spite of the hard times, that is up from last year, 2009, when it was $3.5 million. So they've increased it for that. Coming in second place, Mr. Speaker, is the Ministry of Finance. 21 million, 21.2 million. 2010 estimates, Ministry of Finance. Estimates for 2010, 3 million, again up from the 2.4 million of last year. So are they cutting down at all in these hard times? No. So those are the numbers, Mr. Speaker. Coming in second place, I left out second place, Honourable Prime Minister, I'm sorry to do that to you, is the Ministry of Finance. Sorry, is the Prime Minister's office, with 27.4 million for overseas travel. Estimates 2010, 3.7 million, up from 3.5 last year. Now, let's look at the party hearties. You know, these are the ones now with the hosting and the entertainment vote. I've combined the hosting and the entertainment because they both go together. Coming in again at number 1 is national security.
What?
National security. 51 million hosted entertainment. The 2010 estimates 8.8 million, up from last year, 7.9 million. Number 2 coming in is foreign affairs. 45.4 million totals. 2010 estimates 8.6, up from 7.4 million last year. Coming in at number 3, Ministry of Finance, 23 million. The 2010 estimates, Mr. Speaker, are 7.2 million, up from 3.3 million last year. Up from 3.3 million, Mr. Speaker. Ministry of Finance again featuring in the top 3. We come to the publicity pyongs, Mr. Speaker. And here coming in at number 1 is tourism. Having spent $370.3 million, Mr. Speaker, grand total. And tourists, are tourists coming to this country? 370 million, point 3. Publicity. Coming in second place, and I'm not surprised about this one, is the Ministry of Health. Ministry of Health, because things are so bad you have to deal with the propaganda. 70 million in totals. 2010 estimates 12.6 million. Up from last year, 12.65 million, Mr. Speaker. And coming in again in the top 3 is the Ministry of Finance. And here we have for publicity, 29.4 million in total. 2010 estimates, 7 million, up from about 4.7 million last year. So that has also increased, almost doubled, Mr. Speaker. By far the largest portion of this propaganda vote for the ministries is for item 62, publicity. Publicity, Mr. Speaker. And so when the Honourable Member for Minister of Information talked to us about numbers going down, they haven't gone down. They've gone up, Mr. Speaker, in these estimates. When we look at the statutory boards and authorities, we see over 2 billion of expenditure. Of the 3.5 in our propaganda vote has been for hosting and entertainment. And so, Mr. Speaker, when we look at that, you know who is number 1 doing the hosting? WASA. WASA, out of the boards, is WASA. 20 million, 2010 estimates of 3 million. And when it comes to publicity, WASA, again out of the boards, is number 2 with 51 million, estimates in 2010 of 7 million. NLCB is indeed number 1 for publicity, and we could probably understand